Hey, Christy from Looming Crafty. Today I want to do a little video about how to make large paper beads. I have a little setup here showing you what one strip of paper, these are going to be done with all scrapbook paper, what one strip of scrapbook paper looks like and what 7 strips of scrapbook paper looks like. So there's a big difference here, and they're all were done on the 3/16 in diameter roller that I have. I have a set of 5 that I've had for going on almost 5 years now. And this yellow one is the largest, the 3/16. And I'm going to do 3 different variations. I'm going to do one with 5 strips, 6 strips, and 7 strips to show you even how those change on the same roller, which will be the I tested the roller out before I started this, and it will only take, this little slot here will only take 7 strips, and it's a little bit tight with 7, but it'll take 7 and roll. I tried to put 8 in it, and it wouldn't take it. So if you wanted to roll them on something, use more strips, you would either have to do it on something else or in some other kind of roller, but this is what I have right now, so this is what I'm using to demonstrate for you. These are some of the other ones that I rolled that are different sizes, different strips. Each one is a different amount of strips. As you can see, they change as they gradiate up in size as far as how many strips you use. So what we're going to do, and my glue bottle says glue all, but it's not, it's Elmer's. I have 2 of these. One I have glue all in, and the other one I have Elmer's, and I've got them labeled. So this is actually Elmer's glue. That's all you need, some Elmer's glue. You might want a wet sponge or like a little damp rag to wipe your hands to glue off if you your hands get too sticky. That's completely up to you. And what I was talking about a little while ago is this one is, like I mentioned, 7 strips of scrapbook paper. This is cardstock, and it's 2 strips of cardstock on this pick. You can see it's a little bit wider. The strip I cut a little bit wider, and it's just a little bit bigger because it's a stockier paper. So the stockier paper you use, the bigger your bead will be, and it will depend on the size of the diameter of the hole inside too as to how big your bead will be. So that's something to remember. But you can see how cardstock, a stockier paper, makes a difference. 2 strips of cardstock compared to 7 layers of scrapbook paper. So there's just a little bit of difference there. A little stockier bead there. So I wanted to show that to you. Let's get started. I'm going to take my roller, I'm going to move this stuff out of the way, and then I'm going to put my 5, my 6, and my 7 out so you can see the difference in 3 sizes put together. 5, 6, and 7, and move my camera just a little bit. There we go. Okay, I have 5 strips here, and they're all cut the same size. Now, sometimes you might accidentally cut one a little shorter, not quite as wide. If you do, always put the one that is the most narrow on top and put the one that's the widest on the bottom. Okay, so put the wider ones on the bottom if that's the way you accidentally cut them or cut them on purpose. You can cut them on purpose like that and layer them and have make 2-tone or gradient looking beads. I will do a video on that later on, how to do that. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm getting these down here even. Okay, you want to make sure they're as even as possible. They don't have to be even right here right now. We're not worried about that. We're just worried about getting them even when we put them into the roller. So we're going to stick them in the roller. You see that went in there very easily. And we're going to start rolling the bead. Now as you roll the bead, you need to make sure that you have some tautness on your strips and pulling kind of against the strips, I kind of put a little tension, and I kind of guide with my thumb and my hands, and you need to try to get it as even as you can on both sides, and keep your strip straight as you're going down. You got to keep that tension. If you don't, this thing will pop apart like a spring. And that has happened. It happens often sometimes. And just if you need to adjust, you can just kind of adjust it a little bit. Now, some people glue as they're turning their bead and wrapping it. I don't do it. And the reason I don't do it is because if you glue it and it pops apart, it may be hard to get it back to this point again. And another reason is if I want to adjust this bead before I glue the ends, I can adjust it like this. So if I'm getting a little too far on one side than the other and I want to adjust it, I can kind of move it around and adjust it. That's personal preference. It's something you'll learn to decide as you go when you're doing these beads. But I just keep rolling, making sure I've got my strip straight. And then when you get down here to the end, of course, because the way you're rolling, you're going to have a few that aren't going to completely line up. You see here? They're not all exactly the same length. Now, it doesn't matter. If you want to go ahead and glue them like that, that is perfectly fine. For myself, I usually clip them at a little angle like that. And it gives a better, neater edge, I think. Okay, when you get about that much, you need to put some glue on here. And you need to be, generous with your glue because, and if those ends spread out, it's okay. It doesn't matter. And just roll around with your fingers with some pressure. Make sure you see my fingers are turning red there. I've got some pressure on that because I want that glue to work in there so those ends won't pop off. Because I don't want to have to re-roll this if I don't have to. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to wipe my fingers off, and I'm going to take this one off. And this was 5 strips of paper, scrapbook paper. Okay, we're going to set that right there with the 5. Now, this one is going to be 6 strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got different colors here. You don't have to have different colors. You can have them all the same color. Having different colors with them the same size isn't going to make much difference. The only difference you might see a little bit with having different colors and having them the same size at the end is you might have a little bit of color show through right there on the edges. But unless you're doing them different sizes, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference. I just picked these up just for demonstration to show you. So again, I'm going to straighten them up. I'm going to get them as even as I can down here at the bottom. And then I'm going to line them into my roller. Remember, this is 6 strips. And we're going to start again. Keeping tight, some tautness as we roll. And I've got some tautness on this strip underneath here too. See, my finger's red from grabbing it. I'm adding some resistance. I'm adding resistance by pushing with my thumb on my roller and pulling toward me with my strips. Not enough to break them or tear them or anything. I mean, you don't want to do that. But I'm adding some resistance. I want to keep that taut because I want that bead to be very, as uniform as possible. Okay. And I usually flip mine back up like this and hold my finger on it that way. And you see here, I've got some that are different lengths. You can just go ahead and glue them on there. It doesn't matter. But like I said before, I just like to clip mine and kind of have a neater looking edge. You need to always make sure you keep that thumb on them before you put your glue on. If you don't, like I said, it's going to pop off and just roll like a spring off this roller. And then you'll have to start all over again. So put your glue on there. You can put some between the layers, but when you do this like this, most of the time with scrapbook paper, you don't have to, because if you put enough glue and you roll it around and put some pressure on it, it'll hold together. Now, if you were doing cardstock, I don't know that I would use Elmer's. Cardstock will kind of, it'll seem like it's glued and it'll kind of pop apart. You might want to use glue all, which is stickier and stronger than Elmer's, regular Elmer's PVA glue. Or you could use Eileen's tacky glue. I do have some Eileen's tacky glue I use for a cereal box or food box paper beads, and I use glue all. I do have different kinds of glue I use depending on how thick the paper is. Okay, there's my 6 strips of scrapbook paper. Now let's compare the 6 to the 5. You can already see a difference. You see that one is wider around in the middle than this one. So this is 5. This is 6. And now we're going to do the jumbo 7. And 7 strips was as much as I could get in this roller comfortably and still be able to roll them. So let's count them. Make sure 1, 2, that one needs to be on top, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 7 strips here. I'm going to straighten them up. Somebody asked me one day, did I get paper cuts? Like, yeah. I get paper cuts from time to time. And they hurt like the dickens, but... Okay. This one's a little bit harder. Well, that done pretty good. It's a little bit tighter, you see, to push in there. But it'll go. 8 will not work. So here we go. We're going to start rolling again, making sure our strips are uniform as we can. As we roll, putting tension. Like I said, I'm pushing on my roller with my thumb away from me, and I'm pulling on my strips toward me. So I'm creating some tension there to keep that tight. As I roll. You have to kind of adjust as you go your strips. Okay, again, I'm going to clip them down below my lowest piece here, that's the shortest, just like that. And then I'm going to add my glue on the back side. Nice little drop there of glue. And I'm going to push it down and roll it through my fingers like this a few times with some pressure so that I'll make sure it's good and adhered to the bead, and that should be good. And there's your jumbo 7 strips of scrapbook paper on a 3/16 inch in diameter roller. And I take it off. Oops. And you see when I took it off, my camera's really not focusing well today. You see when I took it off that it kind of misshapen a little bit. If that happens, all you have to do is push it back and kind of shaping it back up. That's why I don't glue my beads as I'm rolling them. Glue the strips. I wait till the end. Okay, so there's the 7. So there you have a 5, 6, and 7. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please comment, ask me. I will do my best to answer your questions. Give me some likes. Subscribe to my channel if you hadn't yet, and there will be more to come. Thank you much, and have a wonderful day.